And let's start your big story off with Rebecca Thompson, who is live in Toronto. Rebecca has been following this story. And Rebecca, the House just reconvened today. So what's the latest down there on Capitol Hill? Is it all love and kisses anymore?
Well, certainly congressional leaders were out in full force today speaking about this looming fiscal cliff, which could put the U.S. into recession. And we heard from Nancy Pelosi, who is the Democratic House of Leaders of House Representatives. And what she said is, yes, there needs to be an agreement immediately in order to avoid this fiscal cliff. Listen in.
We want an agreement. We want one, as Mr. Israel said, Chairman Israel said, that is fair to middle-class Americans, that we need to have growth, put growth on the table. How do we get growth? If we have growth, we can produce revenue. I want you to be disabused of any notion that there's any widespread thought that it would be a good thing for our country for us to go over the cliff. We want an agreement. We want an agreement.
Now, what's interesting is what President Obama's strategy was. He did meet with union representatives today, which 65% of unions supported him in the election. He's planning to meet with business leaders later this week. And then at the very end of the week, he plans to meet with congressional leaders to have the first round of bipartisan talks to address this fiscal crisis. Now, the background about the fiscal cliff is that they did know about this. The U.S. Congress did know about this 2 years ago. And essentially, the U.S. started to hit the debt ceiling with enormous spending and said, look, we have to draw a line in the sand and introduce this idea of reducing spending, cutting spending, and introducing tax increases, which will take effect on January 1st. Now, what's key here is that there does have to be an agreement, and the Republican House of Representatives, which is the majority, does hold Obama to account on this. It is up to them to decide whether or not this will happen. And there's a divide in what Obama is asking for and what the Republicans are asking for. In fact, Majority Leader John Boehner did say that what he's asking for is zero tax increase policy and to rein in spending. Now, we also have heard from others. David, the president of Americans for Tax Reform, Grover Norquist, says the problem is spending all across the government and what they call is entitlement programs. Listen in.
We're in exactly the same position we were 2 years ago. The President Obama said the economy is doing so poorly, we can't raise taxes now. The economy is doing as poorly now as it was 2 years ago. And to raise taxes now would hurt the entire economy. And 2 years ago, they extended all of the tax cuts for 2 years. They should consider doing exactly the same thing and focus on the problem they created, which is too much spending.
Now, there clearly there's a lot of work to be done, David, over the next coming months in order to reach an agreement, if an agreement can be reached. But what's also important to note in this is just exactly how Boehner and President Obama work with this balance of power between his office and the House of Representatives. And this will set the tone likely for the next 2 years.
And Rebecca, it sounds very much today, it's just looking at the legislators, not necessarily the folks like Grover Norquist, the sort of third parties. But reading between the lines of the legislators' language, they still seem to be feeling each other out, sort of testing the waters, how far they can push each other. And as you said, we'll see which way they're going. But so far, no one has actually put anything on the table yet. They
haven't put anything on the table, but given that there's been so much gridlock in the past 2 years, this is the issue, is that can they move past the gridlock? Can they reach an agreement? Nobody wants this fiscal cliff to result in a major recession for the economy. And so the big issue is what will happen in the next 50 days, and will they be able to move past this gridlock? So as you say, that there is a lot of, there's not a lot of drawing lines in the sand just yet, but we may see it in the next 2 months.
That's right, 50 days, just over 7 weeks. Rebecca Thompson, thank you so much in our Toronto newsroom tonight.
Thank you.